Hey everybody. Um, this is just a freebie. If you're interested in the crypto space, and I think you probably will, or are, or at least you're involved in it right now, whether you know it or not. Our dollars have basically been digitized. They are talking about a programmable federal coin or crypto coin that will be issued by the government, and um, they've already started that. If you or your parents actually received any payments over the course of the COVID um, thing that we had go on here lately, um, it was actually just transferred right directly into your bank account from the Federal Reserve. That's the one that prints and sells prints money, prints bonds, or sells bonds. It makes the money that makes the world go round, since this is the world's global currency, the dollar, the reserve currency of the world. Um, so the Fed coin is coming. It isn't here yet. They're sure talking it up back in Washington, D.C. It will be programmable. They will have the ability to inject cash into your checking accounts directly, as they already have done, and they'll be able to pull it out. They'll also be able to program that so that it can only be used for certain things and not used for others. So I think it's important to think about some alternative rails for your finances. And I think it's kind of an exciting thing. I mentioned that earlier on in a forum about the DeFi or decentralized finance and becoming your own bank could be a possibility, especially if you start early, if you start investing early. And the particular asset I'm talking about is only 13 years old, and many of you probably already have heard of it. It's Bitcoin. They're only making 21 million Bitcoin. We've seen some great uses of it just of late. Ukrainians were getting out of Ukraine and still bringing with them their wealth. If they'd had any other asset, if they had land or any kind of personal assets, and gold, it probably would not have made it out of the country. But since they had their cold storage wallets with them and the key in their head or someplace hidden, they could get at least a portion of their personal wealth that way. So those are some of the advantages, and there's many others too. But it's been here. It's actually been pretty well tested with several black swan events, and I believe that it certainly could be used as a business instrument. It actually is by a couple of companies. Tesla is heavily invested in Bitcoin. MicroStrategies, they're about a $3.2 billion company, software company. They own 130,000 Bitcoin. Right now, the price of Bitcoin is over 41,000 as I'm recording this, and so you can do the math and just determine the value of just their Bitcoin. If you're a stock trader, I'm not giving any financial advice here, although I do all through the class, right? But you might look up MicroStrategies. The amount of Bitcoin in a company that has gross profits of over $500 million a year on average for the last 4 or 5 years actually is valued at less than their stock treasury holds in Bitcoin. So anyway, just a little bit of an aside there. The whole DeFi space is interesting. Well, and I put this chart up here to give you some thought-provoking things about it. Number one, you should see that it's actually very, very volatile. Okay, so I mean, in this downturn, this doesn't go all the way through the life of Bitcoin, but we had about a 75% downturn in the actual price. So extreme volatility there. In this one here, back in 2017, we had about 83, 85% downturn in that asset. Okay. And of course, we've got these other ones here, but here's the recent one. And we're down about a little over 50%, or about 50% in that one. So you can kind of think of it as, compare it to real estate. If real estate were to go down 85%, actually I've gone through one downturn similar to that one, but it doesn't normally go down that much. But we've seen that in the past, in the 80s. But there is some extreme volatility, and that's what, if you go way back in history, when you talk about some of these assets, you see the volatility early on when they're first introduced and they're marketed. And we believe, or a lot of people believe, as I do, that the volatility will not ever go away, but it will stabilize somewhat, and we won't see the extreme cases of volatility unless there are some black swan events. But the big thing, the takeaway from this graph, is the fact that it's up and to the right. Okay. Now I'm a guy that's basically against debt, although it can be used strategically to purchase income producing assets only. It makes me live with more peace and calm if I have the collateral to actually pay that back. That's not always possible, especially in the early stages of a company or business. So I do understand that part of it. So if you're going to go into debt, you're going to take on some additional risk if you don't have the collateral. But think about this. Many of you are very, very young in starting out in your careers. If you were to invest small amounts into an asset like this and the valuations are going up and to the right, and what I mean is, like, for the next 10 years, you just keep buying some little by little, income averaging in, put it in your Roth IRA. If you don't have one, you should. If you are an income earner, that is one of the best vehicles to save in for later in life. Okay, if you ever have any questions about any of this stuff, you're sure welcome to ask me, or I can direct you to people that obviously even know more than I do. But anyway, by accumulating an asset like this that is going up and to the right, like this one is, the average annual return on Bitcoin over the course of its life has been over 200% a year. Not every year, but that's the average. Okay, so think of this as in the decentralized finance space. That means debt. That means taking on debt. If you have the collateral, right now you can get a mortgage. If you have Bitcoin for collateral, you get a mortgage for a house. There are several companies offering these kind of mortgages. There will be more that will actually offer it in the traditional sense of land and equipment and all that kind of stuff. You may have to work with a specialized banker in order to get that kind of financing, or actually go to the crypto space. Currently, one of the sites that I use is Celsius, CELSIUS. Right now, I can get a 1% loan, but the big caveat of that is the fact that I have to over collateralize. They are protecting themselves from this volatility. But if you have an asset that is appreciating in value, your loan to value ratio actually declines as that loan matures. And you can even have the possibility of never paying back because it's such an insignificant amount if this asset appreciates at a particular rate. But I digress a little bit here, is the fact that you can get really, really low rates. You can't get that even on a mortgage right now. If you have a really good credit score, you're going to pay 4 to 5% on a mortgage. Maybe through some of the federal subsidized loans, you might be able to do a little bit better, but you're not going to get 1%. So it's almost an insignificant amount to a business as far as an expense goes. And then you have this asset that's actually appreciating against it. So anyway, a really, really, I think, interesting business concept, interesting personal finance, and possibilities for retirement accounts and things like that for the future. And if you have a small amount that you can put into this, I would highly recommend it. Not financial advice. I'm not supposed to give you direct financial advice, right? At least that's all the videos that I watch. But consider it. Listen to some of these guys. Michael Saylor is the CEO and the primary shareholder of MicroStrategies. He's got a ton of stuff. Saylor.org is a website that actually has some training and all you ever wanted to know about Bitcoin itself. I highly recommend that you read the free copy of the Bitcoin Standard, pass it out to others in the space that you know, your loved ones and that sort of thing, so they might understand this too. It's not easy for us old guys to really comprehend what's going on behind this, but it's not just a fluke. It's something that I've spent the last year and a half researching and investing in, and I think it will make a difference in business, and it'll give you an alternative financial rails to work off of if and when we are not the only reserve currency in the world. That's one of the things that's kept our standard of living up in the United States for all these years since World War II, is the fact that we've had that reserve currency status. And so it'll get easier, it'll get more customer friendly in all of the space. Doesn't mean you have to take out a loan against it right now, but those are some really exciting developments, I think, within this space. So I hope you enjoy, learn. If you have any questions or just want to discuss it, man, I'm always open to those kinds of things. And just because the class is about to end or has ended, doesn't mean that I'm not available. I've given you out my personal phone number, my email, and other ways to contact me. So I enjoy visiting with all of you. So take care. I wish you all the best. And hopefully you've taken a few things that you can use from this class and run with them. And again, I wish you the best.